This story is found in Luke chapter 10, 38 through 42. That portion is 5 verses long. And I am a pictorial thinker. I mean, it means I dream in living color. When I read a book, I see it on a big screen. And I know that some of you are digital thinkers. You just want the facts. I'm so sorry about that. Because I think you miss so much colorful detail by not looking at the culture of the times, by not digging a little deeper into the commentaries, by not getting a little extra of that peripheral information. But I did that for you tonight. And I'd like to supply that. And I would like to invite you to become a pictorial thinker with me as we step into the little community, the village of Bethany, which is where Mary and Martha lived. Now, I have to tell you, Mary is not the key figure in this story. Martha is not the key figure in this story. Jesus is the key figure in this story. And let's think about Jesus for just a minute and the time frame that this story took place. It took place toward the end of his earthly ministry. He knows that it's almost time for him to die. In Jerusalem, which was about 5 miles away. And was Jesus married? No. You've got single Jesus on the road in ministry. About how old was he? Early 30s, probably around 33. Single Jesus on the road in ministry, and the scripture says that when Jesus began his earthly ministry, it says he had nowhere to lay his head. That tells me that here he is on the road day after day after day, preaching, teaching, healing, and he was some controversial rabbi, I'll tell you. He healed the sick, he raised the lame, made them walk, made the blind eyes see, and he taught, and he taught, and he taught. And he didn't just always have 12 guys following him around. The scripture says sometimes he had multitudes following him. And he fed them, and he taught them. And sometimes they pressed upon him so heavily that there's a story where he had to get into a boat and push off from shore just to separate him a bit from the crowd because it was so thick. You know, I really love speaking to all of you, but it would be really hard if you were right upon me and I felt like I couldn't get away, get just a little space. Can you imagine that day in and day out and day in and day out? And I know that tonight I get to drive home and crawl into my own bed, and that sounds good. And I can identify with Jesus in a small way because I'm on the road a lot in ministry. But I kind of try to space it out a little bit. I try to space it out so it's only so many weekends a month so that I can have a little time with my family. And even then, I carry my own pillow with me because it smells and it feels like home. And even when I'm in those hotel rooms, I've got that pillow. But the Son of Man had nowhere to lay his head. But you know what's very interesting to me as I read about Jesus, single Jesus on the road in ministry? There was one place mentioned more than any other in all of the Gospels as a place where he would return time and time again, where he always knew he would be welcomed. And it was the home of Martha and Mary and Lazarus in a little village called Bethany, about 5 miles from Jerusalem. Isn't that interesting to think that single Jesus loved to hang out with those 3 single siblings? And he knew he would be welcomed, and guess what? Martha had the gift of hospitality. She probably was a great cook and made sure he was comfortable. Do you think he didn't appreciate Martha? Oh, yeah. Now, mostly when we hear about Martha, she's always being reprimanded, isn't she? Reprimanded for being too fussy, for just making too much of everything. Do you think he didn't appreciate her? And he loved them. The scripture says Jesus loved them. They were close, close friends. So as the story opens, we need to come into the reading of this particular chapter understanding all of that. That this is a place he knew well. This is a place he didn't just know well. They were like buds.